Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Dementia Friendly Nevada Distinguished Speaker Series today. Um, it is a pleasure to have you all here. I see some familiar faces here. If this is if you are a return customer for the Dementia Friendly Nevada Distinguished Speaker Series, welcome back. Lovely to have you back. If this is your first time, then it is my true pleasure to welcome you to the Dementia Friendly Nevada Initiative. My name is Casey Venturini. I have the privilege of serving as community convener for Dementia Friendly Nevada, and I do so in my role with the DEAR program, DEER, the Dementia Engagement, Education, and Research Program in the School of Public Health at the University of Nevada, Reno. And the DEAR program at UNR serves as the institutional home base for Dementia Friendly Nevada. But as I say each time we get together, and as I reinforce at every possible opportunity, the true lifeblood of Dementia Friendly Nevada lies in the communities that are part of our network. We have 9 communities currently part of the Dementia Friendly Nevada network, all of which are working bringing community members together to take local action towards becoming more respectful, educated, supportive, and inclusive of people living with dementia and care partners. And I see some of our co-facilitators on the call today. Those community group co-facilitators are the local leaders that help to spearhead those efforts at the local level. And so thank you, thank you, thank you to our community group co-facilitators. And thank you to anyone who's ever connected with a Dementia Friendly Nevada community group. If you've joined one of your local meetings, if you've come to a community program, thank you for being involved in this work. It truly takes everyone. Everyone has a part to play in making dementia friendly and inclusive communities a reality. I also know that many of you are likely joining us from outside of Nevada, and to that I say congratulations. You are an honorary member of the Silver State for today. So if you are outside of Nevada, then I definitely encourage you to learn more about the great work happening in Nevada by visiting dfnv.org and learning about the Dementia Friendly Nevada Initiative. But just know that we really see these Distinguished Speaker Series sessions as useful and important for everyone. You don't have to be a Nevadan. What we aim to do with this series is to bring high quality education to inform the work of our community groups, to help add information, tools, resources, best practices, and inspiration to fuel the fire of dementia friendly and inclusive communities. And so, if you are a professional in the field of dementia care and support, if you are a person living with dementia yourself, if you're a care partner, these Dementia Friendly Nevada Distinguished Speaker Series sessions are for you. I guarantee you, you will walk away wanting to come to the next one. And I will just say, we host these every month. So if you happen to cross this month, you should come back next month, second Monday of each month. We always have high quality education, really the leading experts coming to you virtually to share their wisdom. And I am absolutely over the moon to have our distinguished speaker here today, Damian Murphy from Innovations in Dementia. And I will introduce our speaker here in just a few moments after I do just a little bit of uh, of what's the word? Information to help you navigate Zoom as you go. Um, so, just a few things. If you wouldn't mind keeping your microphones muted, if you're not contributing, if you're not active, asking a question, that really helps us minimize the background noise so that we can all hear what our speaker has to say. I also want to let you know, because we always get the question, that Damien has graciously offered to have the full recording of this presentation posted online on the Dementia Friendly Nevada webpage after the talk. So you will all receive an email when it's available, but you can always visit dfnv.org and you will find not only Damien's presentation once it is posted, but the full library of Dementia Friendly Nevada Distinguished Speaker Series sessions dating back into 2024. So if you missed a session, if you want to know what we've covered in the past, go and take a look at the videos, have a little watch party, and you can wait eagerly for the full recording of today to be posted along with the presentation slides. Otherwise, that is all I have, and that is all I will do because I don't want to get any further in between you all and our speaker today. So it is my pleasure to introduce Damian Murphy from Innovations in Dementia, who is our distinguished speaker series, or who is our distinguished speaker for August. With a background in learning, disability nursing, and formation living community in Latin America, Damien has spent about 30 years working with people with dementia in acute, community, and long-term care settings. After a long association with Innovations in Dementia, he became co-director in September 2016. He created the relationship-centered Getting Along program. He also created the Good Life with Dementia model, facilitating the creation and delivery of a post-diagnostic dementia training by people living with dementia for people living with dementia. It's going to center our conversation today. Damien also helps facilitate York Minds and Voices, a peer group in the Deep network, and he lives with the girl of his dreams and their three children and a dog in York, United Kingdom. Damien, thank you for joining us from across the ocean at 9 p.m. your time to share your wisdom with us. We are so grateful to have you with us, and I will pass it over to you.
Hey Steve, thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. Yeah, thanks for a lovely warm welcome and for getting me here today. Well, without more ado, I will share my screen. I've got a bit of a presentation, so there will be a bit. You won't just see my mug sort of droning on for however long. Hopefully, it'll be an interesting chat, and before we know it, we'll be deep in conversation and questions. So just got to. It only works when I stick my tongue out, so bear with me. Right. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. As Casey says, my name's Damian Murphy. I work for Innovations in Dementia. We're a not-for-profit community interest company in the UK. And yes, I'm here today, as Casey hinted, to talk about a good life with dementia, with the subplot of shared learning amongst equals. So, without more ado, let's move on. That's where I live, the most beautiful city in England, York. And there it is on the map on the right with a big red dot, and that's my name on the left. Beautiful place. Must come and visit. This is who I work with, Innovations in Dementia. That's our website. And as Casey said, you'll have the presentation, and I'm obviously very happy to share all the slides, so you don't need to make notes, and you can click on those things at your leisure. A little bit about us then. I suppose, yeah, justice is yeah, justice, warmth, open and brave. Rights go through all our work. Dementia is a rights-based issue, as I'm sure you'll know. And it's about a lot of it often is about banging the table and shouting for the rights of people with dementia, but also supporting people with dementia themselves to shout for their rights. Warmth, we're lovely, we are. And I think, you know, you've got to be really. I think you can't. You've got to be well, what's the word? Congruent really with who you are in this work of daily human encounters, and I think that gets forgotten a lot in many sort of complex systems. Um, we're open to growth, to potential, and to wonder. Wonder, not wander, as we always say. And we like to have and inspire different conversations. And hopefully today will be a bit of a different conversation. Although looking at the work of Dear, I think I'm preaching to the converted. So I feel very much at home already from what I've read and the people I've met and how you've all looked after me on the way to getting onto screen today. So these are sort of the 5 areas, if you go on our website, where we sort of themed our rights. This is our work. We've done a lot of work on rights and the rights of people to belong, to be included, to shape services, to be in the driving seat of stuff, really. And also a lot of our work is about accessibility. People often talk, well, dementia friendly Nevada, dementia friendly is a big phrase. And I think really that can only, from my experience, it's really a phrase that can only be is really in the eye of the beholder. You know, in certainly in the UK, we had a lot of a big national initiative about being dementia friendly, and lots of shops and banks had stickers in the window saying we're dementia friendly. And I thought, well, if somebody with a dementia goes into the bank and has a really good time and gets supported and helped, that's great. If the next person walks in 5 minutes later and doesn't, then it's not. Um, so yeah, accessibility. I mean, and we always say if it's accessible for somebody with dementia, whether that's wayfinding or published material or the formatting of instructions and what have you, then it's going to be accessible for everybody. Dementia Voices is probably our biggest piece of work. Casey mentioned the DEEP network. That is the Dementia Engagement and Empowerment Project, as was. We just call it DEEP now, which looked to find out where all the peer groups of people with dementia were. This is going on 15, 20 years ago. And what we found was about 12 groups around the UK of people coming together, people living with dementia coming together. There's about 100 groups now nationwide, part of the Deep Network. And I help facilitate one of those groups up here in York, and I have done for the last 12 years. And it's just, it fuels all the work we do, really, contact with people with dementia. So our aim really is to broaden that platform for the voices of people with dementia to have their say and not to shy away, really. Belonging is a massive part of our work. Belonging, remaining as a citizen in your community, even in your own home, as a valid family member, a valid citizen, and neighbor, and uncle, wife, husband, child. And that's really, really important. And particularly relationships can be really sort of prejudiced and within when there's the presence of a dementia there, sort of tripping people up and setting traps, if you like. So we do a lot of work on that. And finally, my favorite bit of our work, I think, is recovery and discovery. I love that phrase. This isn't about recovering from dementia. There isn't a cure as yet, but it's about recovery from the blow of a diagnosis. And I think, whenever you speak to anybody and ask them about how it felt being told they got dementia, everyone has a different story, and usually it's not the best. Um, and discovery as well of being open to what people can do and discover and learn and create. And I think we're really going to be talking about that theme today because the Good Life with Dementia program fits in there. So I'll talk about the birth of a good life if you want, and then a little bit about the content of it. We'll show a video, but also then we'll talk about the impact of it and the potential, I suppose, for how we can all move forward with that. Right, let's see, what have I got here? Yeah, this is when I first started working in dementia, about 1990 something. And I still ask this question a lot. Why is it that so much is directed at the person without the diagnosis? Yes, there's absolutely need for carer support, but it shouldn't be to the detriment or the exclusion of people with dementia, which is often, I'm afraid, the case, however well-intended things are. So that's my question. So I thought, there's lots of these courses out for carers. There's lots of carers information programs. I used to deliver them myself. And I thought, well, how about doing an information program for people with dementia who've been diagnosed? And me and a colleague sat down together. We thought we were very clever. We put all our good intentions at work to create a course. We called it My Dementia. And we created a course. We got some people around the table who were recently diagnosed. And after 5 minutes, we threw all our content out of the window because we put the course together. My dementia, my ass. Um, yeah, we did, however well, we were way off the mark. We were absolutely way off the mark as to where people were themselves, about what they understood, about the questions swirling around their heads. We'd done the usual suspects of content of, what is dementia and what's your powers of attorney, and it was just completely missed the point where people were. So we didn't bin the course completely. We spent the time with the people talking and listening, but we decided next time we're going to put a course together ourselves with people with dementia. And that's sort of how A Good Life was born. And the trigger point, because after the sort of the My Dementia debacle, we were waiting for an opportunity. And in our group in York, we saw a flyer, a poster for yet another information program for carers. And on the flyer, on the poster, it said, "Bring your loved one," which is just I don't know, just makes it's a bit funereal that for me. But basically, the idea was that you can bring your loved one along to these sessions, and one of the sessions was the challenging behaviours of your loved one. And I thought, imagine if you're someone with a dementia having to sit through everybody offloading about all the challenges of their partners. And I asked the organisers, I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And they said, "Well, they can go and sit in another room." And we just thought, no, that's not really that's not good enough. And we sort of had a joke in our group at York Minds and Voices, and we said, imagine what are the challenging behaviours of your stressed care partner? And we came up with a huge list of things. And we said, yeah, let's switch all this on the head. So we then looked at the whole course and said, let's turn the whole course around and put it from our perspective. And we created the first Good Life with Dementia course. That was a poster we put up. That quote is from a chap at the Global Brain Health Institute who asked us to talk about it a few years ago. It's nearly as good as toast. That's a good Irish phrase. They're based in Dublin. And I thought, I like that. We'll keep that on the poster. And but essentially, yeah, we said to the guys, we didn't say, what should we stick in a course? He said, what's the message you want to give to somebody recently diagnosed with dementia based on what you know now? What's the one message you want to give? Or what is it you know now that you wish you'd known then? And within 5 minutes, we had the course content. Because it was a sort of conversation we'd been having for several years in Minds and Voices around life with dementia, saying, people think we're gaga. Somebody told me I shouldn't be going around town because they saw me walking around town on my own. You know, how ridiculous. So these myths and misconceptions about what people expected of people with dementia, we realized the biggest problems were mostly other people, really, weren't they? So what I'm going to do now is share my screen. We had a practice with this earlier on before you all joined, so hopefully it should work, but bear with me. This is just a 5-minute video about the first Good Life with Dementia program. You'll hear some of the tutors and some of the course designers on there as well.
Hello, I'm Damian Murphy and I work for Innovations in Dementia, and I want to talk to you about A Good Life with Dementia. It's a post-diagnostic course specifically aimed at people newly diagnosed with dementia. It's been created by people living with dementia and delivered by people living with dementia as course tutors. We created the course alongside members of York Minds and Voices. It's a peer support group of people living with dementia forming part of DEEP, the UK network of Dementia Voices. What particular things did you learn, would you say?
The main thing was that to tell anybody who suddenly finds that they're faced with the problem of dementia, that it wasn't the end of things.
Yeah.
That there was a life ahead, and that depression or loneliness shouldn't take any part in their life.
That's a really positive message.
And the way to overcome that, of course, is to join Minds and Voices.
Good on you.
It says here.
I have been told to say this.
Met some wonderful people there in a fun and friendly environment. I learnt so much more in one morning than I could have ever done if Damian had stood at the front with a script and PowerPoint presentation.
You said the course was beneficial for both people with dementia and tutors like yourself.
Yes, without a doubt. I would never have known anything about this sort of thing, and there'll be people all over the country who won't have a clue about these sorts of things. And this may be a good step forward, not just for people ourselves, but other people that are coming along and how it can affect them in a positive way.
You son?
Yes, well, I was one of the tutors on the course, and It was very exciting seeing people that come and didn't know a great deal about dementia. But it was very interesting. I think it's very worthwhile. But if we can only get response from doctors to send people to us for the course, that would be a great help.
So if you're a commissioner looking for something practical to populate a post-diagnostic pathway, then look no further than A Good Life with Dementia. It should be a right of everybody to have the opportunity to properly take on board the impact of a diagnosis. That way we can create a virtuous cycle of learners on one course becoming tutors for the next cohort of people in their area.
I don't look like I have dementia, but I face increasing challenges as time goes by. However, as a person living with dementia, I can still recognise the power of peer-to-peer support. The course has enabled my wife and I to live our lives and to live within the limits of my dementia. It has enabled me to join groups and organisations to raise awareness and become an advocate for change.
How was it for you as a tutor on the course?
It was a responsibility. You could easily turn around and just not bother about it, but I think it's very important to do the very best you can and try and think these things out for the benefits of yourself and the people who have been on the course, and how it's going to offend people, how it's going to do, wrong words.
Innovations in Dementia can work with new or established groups of people with dementia to create a Good Life with Dementia course in your area. So if you want to commission a Good Life with Dementia, get in touch. Our details are on the final screen of this presentation. In the meantime, I'll leave the last word to a couple of our tutors. Thank you.
What do you think is the best message that you can give to people newly diagnosed?
I think it's a question of, it's not the end by any means. When you first get details of what's happening, it's a bit of a bomb blast, if you like. But you realise there's a lot more living and enjoying, and you've got a lot of years to go as well, and enjoy them.
I suppose I'd like to ask you, what's the one, I know you can't remember much about what you delivered on the course, but could you tell me what's the one message that you would like to give to people newly diagnosed, based upon your experience and what you know and what happens to you now?
I would say to keep going, find yourself a hobby, join minds and voices.
And that was very much the message that you gave.
Was it?
On the course, so yeah. Yeah. We've heard all this before, Elaine.
I don't remember that.
So when we decided to put the course together, we thought, well, let's try and evaluate in some way. And I just really love the simplicity of the message. And I think it's always been like that. The model is, we just want people to go from sad faces to happy faces. We know the impact of it and of the blow of a diagnosis and how it really affects a whole range of things, but confidence especially. And we don't want people to feel afraid anymore, and to see people be more aware of what they can do and their potential. I can live with this was a hope. And it's never really changed that way. I mean, each course, every time we run a course, it's created from scratch by local people living with dementia in that area. So it's not an off-the-shelf course, but it's an off-the-shelf model. We first of all work with a few local people with dementia. We ask those questions about what's your message, your key message to other people, and then we form a course around that and deliver that, or the local people deliver that with our facilitation. So that was good. And we've run loads of them, and I'll just give you now a snapshot of the sorts of things that people talk about in terms of their experience of being on the course and what they've picked up and what they've learned. You know, it's a lovely atmosphere. People meet new people and they help you with your thinking. I love those. I love the way people express things in a way that probably only someone with dementia might be able to say, really. I've been feeling so lonely. I'm so pleased I came. The atmosphere is so positive. And I think, you know, we know that this massive sort of bomb blast, as Peter called it, on the impact of a diagnosis, you know, it can be so negative and you know, depression is very common, isn't it? And just to be in that a really positive atmosphere and a safe space, really, where you can be yourself was so important. And then we had all those, Me Too moments, although not the not that sort of Me Too moment, but those, that's me. I thought I was the only one. And so people were, found themselves in a room, and if they were getting upset, there was always somebody next to them to say, and really mean it, I know how you feel. I couldn't say that. So that was really, really positive. And lovely Julie said, it's just super lovely. You can feel it in people's voices. And I love how she described it's like someone's got their arms around you each time she came. And she was just absolutely delighted. And then she boosted the atmosphere and everybody fed off that. So it's just fantastic, really, the power of peer-to-peer support, as Howard, who spoke very quickly in that video, as he mentioned. Then there was Myra, most recently diagnosed, felt so encouraged, or it's not so much to worry about now. And I think this is where Good Life can really help, nip in the bud and sort of blow away a lot of those myths and misconceptions. And I think this is what we're aiming for globally, really, and I think all our work, when we put it all together, it's about getting to that point where we meet, or people with a diagnosis meet dementia, or everybody really meet dementia with a great deal more equanimity than we currently do. There is a real tragedy narrative that has pervaded over the years, and this sort of stress and burden model has prevailed. And I've never felt comfortable with that because it implies blame on the person with dementia. And we know dementia is nobody's fault. So just an example of what, there's always a session on either what is dementia or what does your dementia mean to you. And I remember when we first did the Good Life course, again, making lots of mistakes. I put up a PowerPoint presentation of a bunch of symptoms that I got off the internet. Well, that was an absolute conversation killer. So we're very low tech now around the course. We just sit and chat together. And we say, what's dementia mean for you? What happens to you? And this is the sort of stuff that's precious, but you just don't get in a dictionary. It's other people saying, don't be silly. Why did you do that? It's your brain not connecting, said one chap. I can't think before I speak. I'm like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. If I only had a brain, said Walter. And then there was another chap, he said recently, it's like waiting for the next word to trip me up. That's what dementia is whenever I'm speaking, because he had an aphasia and he was struggling with his words. And obviously it was worse when he was out in public and sort of maybe feeling put on the spot. There's a few more insights. There's some great descriptions. This one, you can't buy this description, that's about to appear. Tom said, my head started to feel really empty. I felt I was always in contention with someone else, but I didn't know who they were. Imagine the frustration, some invisible being tripping you up, trying to catch you out, pulling the rug from under your feet all the time. How he put that was just fantastic. As I say, you're not going to get that in a dictionary, are you, or on the internet? Well, you are now. This is going live. And then my favorite mate, Bob, who writes a lot of poetry. He struggles to sort of express himself in a meeting, but he'll suddenly feel inspired and he's writing stuff down. Next thing, and I asked him to do something about what dementia means to me, and he wrote a whole page of really beautiful stuff. But in a nutshell, he said, I just want to know that I'm still me. I want you to know that I'm still me, and to ask for love and a gentle reminder in case I've forgotten to put my trousers on, which is Bob to a T in terms of his humour. I've not seen him without his trousers, by the way. So yeah, so that was sort of the insight in terms of what would come out of the course content and on a particular session around sort of dementia. But the feedback for how it was for people. This was a chap who's a retired journalist. I've read a lot. I've been there, been around the block. He said I was skeptical about the course. I'd hoover up information. I'd read all the books. I'd learned as much as possible about dementia. But really, this enabled me to process all the emotions around my life sentence, he said, and to find a new purpose. in life, which blew me away, and that's Fife in Scotland. I've got the word manifesto there. The first few times we did a Good Life course, there was always a general election going on in the UK. So we thought, oh, the political parties are coming up with manifestos. We'll come up with our own. And the manifesto was basically made up of all the calls to action, all the observations from our conversations, all the expectations that people with dementia wanted from other people, and the things they wanted to point out. So things around the time of diagnosis, for example, we really put this call out, and this is something we repeat so often now. Services are providing the wrong things because they're not listening to what we are saying we need. For years, it's people without dementia who've been creating policies and procedures and services for thinking what people with dementia need, but not really knowing that. However well intended, I've been there myself, as I said earlier on. So we'll have a load of statements out there as well would come out in our manifestos. Dementia is not our fault. Stop telling us off. Stop treating us like children. It's not our fault. So what if we repeat things? So what if we repeat things? So what if we repeat things? And this was great about respite. Respite shouldn't just be about moving out. A lot of that's probably the same worldwide, but people are always wanting respite. I want a break. I want a break. And it's not about moving out, really. It's about a healthy space for everyone. So Howard, who you saw on the video there, he said, respite for me is my wife. If my wife coming home from work and moaning about work and not moaning about me. And but generally, services have tend to separate people, thinking and not doing anything with them in the meantime. So that relationship just doesn't get helped in any way. So that was some of the things that people said. I want to talk about the Good Life course in terms of the impact it's had really now. It doesn't stand alone. And by that, I mean, okay, it's a 6-week, maybe 7-week. I think it's a 6-week course mostly. But there's no cliff edge at the end. Many people say, well, I went on this course, cognitive stimulation or something, and it was so many weeks and that was it. And what happens next? And the fact is, when you start a Good Life with Dementia course, you're going to end up with a bunch of people, tutors and learners together, who are now new friends, who are engaged and interested, and who want to carry on meeting. So we've got to keep that conversation going, and we've got to facilitate that space. As I say, it creates this new active, engaged group. And it creates a virtuous cycle. So people who've been on one course become tutors on the next time we run it. And that's happened an awful lot. So I think really the Good course can really form part of a whole new culture of learning and development that's led by people with dementia. So in the Good Life, the learning needs are those of people with dementia. The people providing the learning are also people with dementia. But families and staff have learning needs that in many cases, I think people with dementia are in the best position to give and to create. So all our work now, all our training, for example, or learning, we always do it alongside people living with dementia, create the course and deliver it together. And you have people holding whole audiences in the palm of their hand, people who sort of a couple of months previous wouldn't, were sort of not even admitting to having a dementia because they were just so terrified. So we facilitated dozens of Good Life programs across the UK. Oh, look, I've given it the US spelling, probably because it fits on the line. Several new peer groups then have emerged that now can join that national deep network of independent groups across the UK. So they join a national conversation, they can feed into it and draw from it. Each course created what we call the Good Life resource booklet, and it had that manifesto in it, had our calls to action, it had a list of what we'd learned, it had some key numbers, and the local memory services, the local people who diagnose the health service, were saying this is so much better than what we give people newly diagnosed. Can we print this? And that's what they've done. And the local authority, the council and the health services now do a print run of the latest Good Life booklet, certainly in East Yorkshire, where I've been working. And it's up to date and it's created by local people with dementia and who've delivered the courses, who've created the courses. So when they see that, again, here's an example of what, me as someone with dementia has produced. Wow, isn't that fantastic? Um, and our groups, they've shaped in this East Yorkshire region, they've shaped the regional 5-year dementia plan. It was the first time I'd supported a group of people with dementia during one of these full of meetings, full of stakeholders that I thought was going to be one of the same old, same old. Oh, we're going to do a strategy. And I was with a table of people with dementia. And for the first time, we were listened to by the leader of the plan. And she gave us space and we absolutely sort of held the floor and the amount of material that the people produced about what needed to happen was so rich. And all the groups having their little conversations every month in a cold church hall somewhere in the middle of the northern UK countryside was having an impact and was becoming a real plan, a local strategy for the whole entire region, which was absolutely fantastic. And the guys, as well as doing that, as well as being a resource locally for the local services, we've done more learning and development for other people other than people with dementia. So we trained a load of taxi drivers. We trained the entire public health team. And they've been given all this e-learning and stuff to do on computers. And one chap said, in 2.5 hours with you lot, I've learnt more than I did with 4 days staring at a screen telling me about dementia on the internet. So that was really really nice to hear. So what can we all do then? I'd say it works. And this is something that some chaps from Argentina who I met recently, said, what message can you give to my colleagues when I go back home to Argentina? And I just say, take the lead from people with dementia. And I think we don't just have to do that in Argentina. I think we have to do that everywhere, in all things. Whenever I've been stuck, whenever I've thought, where are we going to go with this? Just go back and you get that fuel from the daily contact with people living with dementia, and they will give you the answer, I'm sure. So let's properly listen to and tap into and heed that resource, that hitherto untapped resource of people with dementia and their supporters themselves. Let's involve people in the design and the delivery of all learning in your area. And in research too, we've got people with dementia been shaping their own research projects and leading their own research projects. And certainly within academic circles in the UK, and I'm sure in the US as well, if you've got research involving or around dementia, if you do not properly involve people with dementia, then you won't get the funding anymore, or you shouldn't. And people I don't know what the people here working on where you work and what your job might be, but you might think, oh, have I got to do something differently, or have I got to add all this to my work? I say, no, don't add this to your workload. Let's revisit how we operate. We've all got the contact with people with dementia, but let's enhance that contact, because I think there's an awful lot of tea and sympathy that still goes on out there because people are really busy and we've got to rush on to the next appointment. But really, let's listen. Let's take the lead. The neighbours can put the kettle on and say, "Ah, poor you." Sometimes we've got a challenge, and let's see where we can go with things and really tap into what people really want and find out the agenda. What's on the agenda of the people we're there to serve, really. So finally, I don't know what the time is at all and how time is going, but there's going to be lots of times for questions. Some food for thought. Let's have a look. What have I put here? Yeah, this idea of trickle down theory, all the poor will get rich eventually. It's a bit like that idea that if you provide somebody said this recently, if you provide good care or support, then that will eventually benefit the person with a diagnosis of dementia. I think it's a myth. Yeah, that's that. Particularly if someone living alone, nothing's going to trickle down to you. And if it does benefit the person, it is in a trickle. We want it to come out in a gush. We want the benefit to affect both parties at the same time. Why should one half of the caregiving relationship wait for something to trickle down? So it may sound counterintuitive, but if you want to address carer burden, then put something practical on for people with dementia. So recently in Yorkshire, we had a gathering, sort of a Dementia Alliance gathering of all sorts of stakeholders, and we had one of our peer groups come along, and we facilitated a conversation at one end of the room with the people with dementia, and then the local Alzheimer's Society facilitated a conversation with care partners at the other end of the room. And I was there with the people with dementia. We had a great conversation about what's your message, what you expect, what you want people to do, and how did it feel, and what would help you, and where are the issues where you need people to address things. And it was really, really positive. Give us a space, all those positive messages that, we're still here, we've got something to provide, we're a resource too. And then we met with the carers and the people who facilitated that conversation. They were traumatized because people are just completely offloaded on the local sort of Alzheimer's societies. And they just were desperate. And one of the comments was, well, it's okay, there's plenty for people with dementia. And I thought, wow, because you will never have heard that at all in the whole of the UK for years, because the reason for the Good Life with Dementia program was that there was no course. It was all carer focused stuff. So in a small area of the UK where we're working, for people to say that, I know it's, they want something absolutely right, but to say that for me, was a real landmark and a real sort of indicator of how far we've come. And I think as well, people are queuing up to tell us how great the Good Life course is for them and their care partner. Because when we have the Good Life course, it is a group of people with dementia in a room, and the care partners are invited to another room or to go off shopping or whatever they want to do. And in that spare room, we bring, other carer support workers. So there's a parallel conversation going on. But the important thing is that the people with dementia have their own space in that room to say their things. And what we found, the care partners have really benefited from the time with other. So it's the peer support thing. Again, working for both sides of that caregiving relationship. So there's no trickle there. It's an absolute gush of support on both sides of that caregiving relationship. So there's your golden melted hot buttered toast. And I will stop the screen share, and I'm very happy to take some questions. Let's have a look, see if I can stop that.
Wow, thank you so much, Damien. My goodness, somebody I think just said, I'm not sure who it was, just shared Vivian, that this is amazing and inspiring. Those are adjectives I would also second. And your the the call to action to live the values of the A Good Life with Dementia program by taking our lead from people living with dementia. My goodness, what an important message to share again here, and something I know that we at Dementia Friendly Nevada and everyone who has found their way to this network receives and will transmit from the mountaintops. But I imagine that there are many, many questions and likely many, many much positive feedback that folks want to share. So I will look around the room here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to facilitate. You can call you can raise your actual hand. You can raise your virtual hand. You can put questions in the chat box anyway, and we'll make sure to get them to Damien. I see Aruna has a question.
Thank you very much for inspiring presentation, Damian. My question is, at least in US, we have a medical mode that, intervention is, there is an issue, there is a problem, and we need to fix it. We need to change our mindset, and how can we do that at the policymakers level as well as individual and the communities at large? Thank you.
Thanks, Aruna. I think, yeah, the presence of the medical model is not just in the US, but maybe more prevalent there, I think. But you could tell me. But yeah, for me, it's a long game. It's a long game. But I would always say, go back to the people with dementia. If the people with dementia have got a platform to start, asking those awkward questions and saying, how about us? Because medicine may, put the brakes on the progress, and there's all sorts of advances in the medicine, aren't there now? But one, they don't reverse the process, and they don't make you feel better about your life. that's to do with being connected, being engaged, feeling you belong. So they go hand in hand. So if somebody says, well, we can extend life by 3 years, but if that life is an extension of just existing rather than living, then, this psychosocial model, if you want, can't be ignored. I'm not saying medicine's bad and one's good or one's, it's not that black and white, but you can't just do the medical without the other side. And people need to live and exist. And a doctor said to me recently, a consultant geriatrician said, well, what's my role in this? You've got these courses. This is fantastic. I said, well, do the diagnosis and then say, look, welcome them. You've all joined a club that you don't want to join, that nobody wants to join, but welcome people to this club and say that they're a valid member of this new community. In fact, it's about creating community. And we need to get all the medics on board as part of that community as valid members. And their role is really valued, but they don't need to sort of fish around and mention something vague about driving and powers of attorney when they're trying to give the diagnosis as a sort of a tokenistic nod to something social. Let them say, look, there's people out there to help you. We're all on your side. You're part of our community now, and we are going to help you. And you're not going to lose all your brain cells in one go. I think the impact of a diagnosis so many times, can be so devastating to so many people I meet. And often it's just a 5-minute conversation to explain you don't lose all your brain cells in one go. And you've got about 100 billion of them. So, you've got plenty in reserve. So you might as well get on. You don't want to just wait for them to go. So life goes on. That's sort of, that simple message, really. So the doctors have got a role to play. And I think it's just about trying to platform the voices of people with dementia. And if there's anything written down with carers in it, absolutely fine. Substitute the word carer for person with dementia and see how challenging that goal might be. And challenge the local authorities, the local service providers. If they're providing a support group for people with for care partners, okay, where's the parallel equivalent for people with dementia? And just keep challenging that and keep asking that. And I think it is a long game, Aruna. Yeah, the medical model, but you can't. Yeah, life is life, isn't it? You've got to live it, and so it's about properly enjoying life and the rights of people to continue to enjoy their lives and to play a role and to belong and to have a voice and choice and control and all those sorts of things. I'm waffling on. I'll have more questions. I don't know if I've answered your question.
I see. I have a question in the chat, and then I'll go to Nancy. Well, actually, Elena, if I'll go to and a couple, and then I'll go to Nancy. I have you on the docket. From Alida or Elida, dementia still has stigma. Many people are reluctant to self-identify. How do you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, that's a cracker. Yes. I mean, so many people there that when I was working supporting families, and you often get told, don't mention the A word or don't mention the D word as you go. And I thought, well, it's going to be a bit hard because that's the reason I'm here. But what I found is talking to people, they often get labeled as having no insight. And I think they're probably the people with most insight because they go to the greatest lengths to try to cover things up and push people away. And I think the reason and I think it's often people are trying to either, well, let's convince someone they've got dementia, let's point out their mistakes and go, there you are. And actually, it's just about acknowledging how terrified they must be. That's what I found has sort of worked, and to breaking that stigma that dementia doesn't mean anything. In fact, I heard a consultant talking recently that is that in 10 years' time the word dementia won't even be used because it's so vague. And I often say this to people with dementia: if you go to the doctor with some spots on your hand, and the doctor says, "Oh, that's a rash," you say, "Come on, doc, I want to." I want something a bit more precise than that. Well, saying that's a dementia is as vague as saying that's a rash. So I think we've got to try and debunk this idea that dementia is this terrible, terrible word. It does have that stigma, and I think, we've got to challenge that because it doesn't mean anything. And actually, it's just loss of nerve cells in the brain, And so explaining, and often in a lot of the training I do, I ask people to explain, how would you explain dementia to a person with dementia in lay terms? Not what you get off the internet. No, it's a syndrome, this, that, and the other. explain it in real lay terms. And that should be a core skill of every frontline worker, I would say, because I was always getting asked by people with dementia, what's this dimension? What's going on? You know, and it was about sort of working through and I would say, well, what happens to you? Because often you get people saying, "Oh, you're going to have this, you're going to have this, and you're bound to experience this, that, and the other." You know, that's terrifying. So just what happens to you? Where do you come a cropper? Oh, you have problems with your words. Yeah, that's, you know what? That's understandable. Many people tell me that. So you let people know that they're not the only ones, that what their experience is normal. And there is no stigma. And certainly I'm saying, well, I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm not here to label you. I'm just here to invite you to come and chat to me about how life is for you, what you find difficult. I says it must, and I often say to people when I go into their houses, it must be really hard here in your own home, treading on eggshells or getting quite defensive. That must be really tough. I'm really sorry to hear that because, that's not fair, is it, in your own home where if you feel maybe people are treading on eggshells around you and not saying stuff. And often that's within earshot of their partner, you see, and cause so they realize immediately I'm sort of siding with them in this situation. And I said, that's not fair, is it? And they said, no. And I said, well, that must be really frightening and really tiring. And do you know what? It's nobody's fault. And people come round. I noticed there's another question there in the side around sort of how do you explain to someone who wasn't even told their diagnosis. I think it's having those sorts of conversations and letting people know that it's not a bad thing. It's normal. There are many other people in that. And if you've got a program like a Good Life or just a gathering of people, within the DN network, for example, bring them along and say, look, this is a space where you can meet other people. And I think you've got an awful lot to offer this group. And your outlook sounds fantastic. And so it's buttering people up really in that sense, saying you've still got plenty to offer and we recognize that. And there's a space for you. It doesn't have to be this way, basically. I think.
Thank you, Damian. I know Nancy Nelson had a question. Oh, Nancy,
We're on
you are
mute.
unmuted, my friend.
There,
Yeah.
did I do it? Sorry, of course I am. Techie one that I am. Hey, I really enjoyed listening to you. We must talk. Okay, so I was diagnosed 13 years ago with early onset, and then 4 years after that, diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. And I've floated along there. And um, I often wondered why I've been so lucky. And I have turned to advocacy and to talking about it and looking people eye to eye and getting people to not think of it as a tragedy, but to think of it as, just a new way of life. And if we got that from the doctor side right away, it might be a different travel because I don't think we've made much ground in that. What have you found? And when you ask, gee, what is it that you feel is happening to you? I feel I'm losing part of myself. I feel like when I miss an appointment or when I misspeak or can't remember something and somebody will say something, and I know that I've done that, then I'm missing something of myself. So I feel myself reaching out, trying not to do that. And that's a time taker.
Yeah.
How would you, and I don't know, you know, I don't, how do you look at that? I just think that I've turned it into caring about and knowing it's not an ending, but it is a new beginning. And I'm the one that needs to change first.
Well, everybody needs to change, I think, Nancy, in terms of that attitude, as you say, if at that point of diagnosis, a doctor says, look, life's going to go on, it's going to be a new way of living, and we'll help you adjust to that. How fantastic would that be? You're absolutely right. But it's music to my ears listening to you, Nancy, in terms of it feels like I'm chatting to one of my friends over here in our group in York because, I hear this so often, that this recognizing as well as you have done there that there are losses. There is that drip feed. Oh, I've tripped up again. Oh, I've missed out, somebody's points and, somebody has seen that. And, oh, I feel a little exposed. And, if you feel exposed or if you feel maybe, oh, somebody's pointed something out or, I think that says something more about other people in terms of pointing out your mistakes. And, if you're in good company and in a safe space, so what if you make a mistake? And there's one of our chaps in our group, and he was in fact not in his diagnosis. He was a guy who was absolutely the cagey man that I was talking about. And he said recently, well, he goes to conferences and he says, oh, I've got dementia, so what? And I think that often there is an element of other people's attitudes. So to having that safe space amongst peers is fantastic. So in our group, people will start telling a joke and forget the end. So what? Anyone can do that, and it's going to happen more frequently in our group, but that's fine. And some people will struggle to get the words out. On that slide there of the chap who had the aphasia, that was on the first couple of weeks of the course. He said, I'm waiting to be tripped up. That's my definition of dementia, waiting to be tripped up at the next word. And on the last session of that course, we were about an hour in, and he said, do you know what? I've not tripped up over a single word today. And the only space I do that is when I'm at home. I feel at home here. So creating that space where you can feel comfortable, even if you do make mistakes, I think is really important. And if you're still feeling uncomfortable, I think that says a lot about the world outside, to be honest, Nancy. And, don't beat yourself up. You've already got a diagnosis of dementia. Why make it worse? But, I think, but yeah, as you say, finding those peers, being an advocate, sharing that really positive message, Nancy, is so important, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to go to a couple of questions I saw in the chat, and then I see Nikki and Jesse. Well, actually, Jesse, yours was the next chat question I was going to read out. So, Jesse, did you want to? Is that the question that you had that you wanted to share?
Okay. Oops. Hi, can you hear me now? Everything good?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, what about prevention measures before diagnosis or before self-diagnosis? Have you ever had to share any information about that?
When you say preventive measures, is this sort of the idea of sort of health promotion to prevent people developing a dementia? Is that the idea?
Yes. Or what steps can be prevented? Do you share anything like that with the group?
Generally, with the group I'm working with, if they're already diagnosed, it's a bit late. But there's and actually it's a really important point you raised, because there's a big thing around brain health and brain health promotion. Presumably, it's going across the world, and a lot of the people with dementia I work with are saying, look, you can do all the health promotion, but I'm feeling that you're telling me it's my fault. You're telling me that I ate the wrong things, or I didn't do enough exercise, or I drank too much, or I smoked too much, or I didn't do, I don't think that's fair, people are saying. And, they're feeling really judged. So it's a really fine line to tread. I think, that preventive work needs to be done. I think we all, I know what good health should be. We've all had those messages. I mean, and in a way, it's the same messages for, do your exercise, eat your greens, and don't eat too much fatty food, and don't drink and smoke. And of course, we still have the fat nurse and the fat dietitian and the smoking doctor, don't we? And I think so. It's a real challenge, and I think it's about motivation. It's not just all, because we all know what to do. But I think that there has been, what I was reading somewhere recently, actually, Jesse, was there's been a study where actually this promotion around lifestyle factors and promoting that has actually slowed the progression. Sort of 10 years ago, people were saying the progression of dementia and the prevalence of dementia is going to be so much, and actually went, oh, actually, no, it's not now. Something's happened. And I think, we are living healthier lives. It's a very slow, again, it's another long game, isn't it? But it's, you'll see that trend in health over the years. So there are lots of sort of, preventive message. I don't do this because I work with people already diagnosed, so it's sort of a bit late. But, there is a space for that, obviously, but it's those positive messages around keeping fit and keeping moving, and there's lots of sort of people looking for indicators now about, okay, look, we can look into your eyes and things like that, can't they? And there might be something here, and the blood biomarkers and all that sort of stuff.
Who already have it, but if you work with people who already have it, usually can if you work with people who already have it, does that mean people in their family might be more subject to it in the first place?
I mean, there are
Where
hereditary, yeah, there are hereditary things, but it's extremely, extremely rare. So just because a family member's got it doesn't mean you're going to get it. It can happen, and you will often see it, in the family tree, very, very young. But that's not to say everybody's going to get it. But it is an extremely rare thing, but it does happen.
Yeah.
But
Thank you,
yeah, I mean,
Jesse.
but yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you
I
so much. I
interrupted you,
appreciate
Damian.
you answering my question.
Thank you, Jesse, for the question. Nikki, I think you were next.
Thank you. Hi, Damian. It's great to meet you, and thank you so much for your presentation and for the amazing programs that you are clearly leading back home in the UK. I've been there a couple of times. So my question is about funding. I work for the Alzheimer's Association, and my partners, Casey, Bradlin, we're competing for a limited amount of dollars to be able to implement our programs. And I know that there are many, many volunteers on this call who help all of us with the work that we do. So how are you funded to be able to roll out these programs in as many communities as you do?
Yeah, well, the dozens of programs that we've run in East Yorkshire is because we've got a long-standing commission with East Riding of Yorkshire, the East Yorkshire local council, local authority, and they've called the commission co-produced dementia programs. And essentially, about 5 years ago, we said we'll put this course together. It will create a new group. That new group will go on to do more things. We can introduce another one. And I said to them, look, this is what will happen. Unfortunately, it's all happened, which is, I'm surprised myself, really. But so they've kept recommissioning they see the benefit of this. And we've been supporting getting other people to shadow. So that's one particular commission that means we can do 2 or 3 courses every year between me and other partners. Elsewhere across the country, you're looking for an individual pot of money. You're absolutely right. And you're looking. We're getting it researched by York University. So they're doing a feasibility study, which means, we're going to be running some programs as part of that research. So that's always helpful. And we're funded as, we're sort of co-applicants on that funding on that research.
Okay.
So there's different ways to do it. And we're hopefully, if, in a couple of years, if then this is seen as a sort of a valid evidence-based intervention, then hopefully it'll get more and more and it'll be commissioned more regularly. But yeah, it's as I always keep saying, it's a long game. You create those relationships, you convince people about the benefits of this idea, and yeah.
So it's mostly in North Yorkshire that you're able to do this
Currently in
work
East Yorkshire, yeah.
Okay.
There's the group in Scotland are doing theirs, and yeah, there's quite a few, but yeah, mostly in East Yorkshire, yeah.
And you get National Lottery funding, do you, as well?
No, we used to have National Lottery funding for our deep network.
Okay.
But we're keeping that afloat on our own time at the minute now, so we need funding. So we're all looking for funds.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to meet you, and this is a great program. And Jesse, I would love to give you some information about the US Pointer study and what we've learned about dementia risk reduction and brain health over the last couple of years. So I'm going to put my email address in the chat.
Thanks, Nikki. I want to go to a chat question and then I'll go to Ken. I have a question here from Bonnie. What information do you have in the resource book that you generate from the A Good Life with Dementia program, the courses?
It's usually, I mean, it's the information from the conversation. So it's about what dementia means to us. It's what we learned. So we learned that we've got 100 billion nerve cells. So we learned it's not our fault. We learned that we've got rights. We learned that. But also then we have speakers, we have what we call a marketplace. So part of the resource book is the contact details of key people who do the welfare benefits, the local council, the doctors, the driving information around, appealing for your license and what have you. And just, local information about local groups, sort of the local Red Cross or various groups like that in each locality. So we just those key numbers really. So it's just a key thing. But most of the content is what came out of the course really, and the pearls of wisdom from all the participants really. But it's very similar to the Dementia Self-Management Guidebook from the DEAR program, um, which very much draws on those conversations like we have over here. So I loved reading that because it was also familiar.
Well, Damien, if you're gonna give me an entry, then I'll
There
give
you
a
go,
shout out
open
here to
goal.
the to the Dementia Self-Management Guidebook, and associated program. If you liked what Nancy Nelson had to share earlier about her lived experience, well, then you're gonna love the Dementia Self-Management Guidebook and program even more because Nancy and five other people living well with dementia helped create them. And the Dementia Self-Management Guidebook and program are just tremendously values aligned with the Good Life with Dementia program. I'd encourage you to check it out at dearprogram.org/dementia self-management. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat here, and you can explore it on your own time. And I won't take any more time away from this conversation, but we're doing kindred work, that is for sure, Damien, here in the U.S. across the sea. But I'll go to Ken. I know you have a question.
First of all, Damian and Casey, this has really been helpful. I think one of the comments that you quoted, the man said, dealing with his life sentence. And I think that's where my wife has found herself, a life sentence and what's going to happen here. Tomorrow, we're meeting again with her neurologist, which we haven't actually. There was a whole lot of activity, 5 MRIs, 3 EEGs forever and ever. But I'm thinking I want to start, or I wonder what you think about this, the conversation with our neurologist, perhaps saying, watch the bad news. It's almost like some doctors, etc., not to be critical, well, maybe a little, feel the need to say, here's all the risk and here's everything that could go wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't understand the whole idea of, in my mind, healing, the power of suggestion. So I guess I'm a little bit wondering about leading tomorrow with, some sort of message about we don't want just bad news. There's been very little interaction with them, almost no how are you guys doing? So it's almost like, except for what we have to share, which we have that old blood tests, new blood tests, here's how fast things are progressing, and so on. And so I'm thinking, oh my, how am I going to lead in that?
Yeah, we had a similar conversation with our group. One of our groups here in New York was because the local services in each riding wanted to review. Everyone's allowed an annual assessment, an annual review, and nobody was getting them, or people were just ticking a box. And they said, what should an annual review look like? And what we found was these reviews were very much what you've described there, Ken, that the idea that it's for the convenience of the clinicians to tick the box, to say scored less than last time, deteriorating nicely as expected, our diagnosis is correct. What does that so our people said, we want this to be a two-way conversation. We want you to maybe answer some of the questions we've got, like, yeah, why do you focus on the negative? We might have to question how long have I got, and you won't be able to answer that. But at least give us a chance to ask those questions. You said, what's going to happen if inside Carol's head she's thinking what's going to happen. She's got all these unanswered questions swirling around. Then if they can't answer them, then maybe it's not worth that appointment, is it? We need somewhere else. But I think from my experience, the power of being amongst peers and having other people say that and recognize that Carol's not alone, and I think is really important. I mean, if they just see you once every year to do the measurement, and then they're not really part of your life, I think. Or they have an
Right.
undue influence over it, really. And if the impact of that is going to be, oh, I scored less than last time, I'm definitely deteriorating, then that's another blow. And I think I mentioned before about recovery and discovery. There's I don't know if there are in the US, but there's a thing called recovery colleges over here in the UK. They sort of usually sit within universities and mental health services, and it's about the recovery model from a mental health issue or an and the Good Life program. There was a professor said, the good life is very much the bedrock of the recovery model, recovering from that blow of a diagnosis, adjusting, as Nancy said, to a new way of living. And those messages that came out in the video that it's a new way, it's a new start, a different way of living.
Wow, that's very helpful. I'm going to have to look that up also, the recovery program and so on. I do want to mention that with the DEAR program in Bradland, the dementia conversations that are just very wonderful, because it's mostly people with caretakers, care partners, and people with dementia, but sharing their day-to-day life, and not, life sentence kind of theme, but here's how we're living and moving forward. It's funny, my wife, we have a thing with daisies on it. It can be a bracelet or something around your neck, and essentially it says, I might need a little more help. And my wife I'm 79, and I'm sure I could use a little more help, period. But so there's a lot more elders walking the streets right now. And the truth is, we're kind of all in this together, I think. So anyway, this is wonderful. And Casey and Damian, I'm hoping that I can share this with my neurologist, and other people that feel the need to point out, oh, I see this is going wrong now, or you know what I mean? It's kind of like a grade you get every time you interact with them. So I hope this is something that I can share quickly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like a two-way thing, isn't it? That they can get stuff out of it, but you should be able to get stuff out of it as well.
Yes.
Thank you for all of that, Ken. Thank you. And Aruna, did you have another question?
Yes, I do, Casey, and that is for you. What are we doing in US to move forward in this direction?
It's a good question that I am sure many others on this call are at least equally as equipped to answer. But, I think that together, a lot of what we've talked about is we are collectively working towards it, right? Rethinking the medical model, or at least
Exactly.
opening up another eye, right? You mentioned that earlier, and our dear program director, Dr. Jennifer Carson, likes to talk about seeing with both eyes, right? One eye being that biomedical model, but one eye being the social and relational model, right? That helps us understand that people are not diseases or problems to be solved. People are people. And if we want to understand dementia, well, maybe it's not in a textbook, it's in a conversation. I think that it also, this conversation reminded me of Dr. Al Power's work. He's based here in the US, and Damien earlier was talking about the fact that dementia is, what does dementia even mean? It's so broad, and Dr. Al Power has a definition of dementia that dementia is a shift in someone's experience of the world. Actually, I looked it up earlier so I could quote him exactly, and of course, I'm doing a bad job now. Dementia is a shift in the way people experience the world around them. What a great definition, right, of dementia, right? Not deficits oriented. It leaves it open to understand each person's individual experience. And so there's great work happening from great people. And then, of course, I have to just say that it's in spaces like Dementia Conversations that Ken just mentioned, where I think that a lot of the most exciting work is happening, because it's people living with dementia, maybe who don't realize that they're being advocates in that moment, but they are living well out loud with dementia, and that is advocacy. Care partners sharing about the joys that they are finding in their experience, that is advocacy. And in so doing, generating helpful strategies for living well with dementia. So there's great work happening. And I could go on and on, but I also don't want to take too much time from this space. But just to say that there is a global community that is working toward this.
Thank you.
But
One more quick
yeah,
question. Can Damien share more about the DEEP program, his DEEP program, because he has mentioned it, but I'm not very clear about it. Maybe I'm a slow learner.
perfect, Damien.
Sure. Deep is it's just a network of groups around the UK, Aruna. So it's yeah, it was yeah, it's a network. So we host the network as Innovations in Dementia. So the network of groups. So it's there's about 100 independent autonomous groups of people living with dementia meeting regularly around the UK. And we're just in touch with all of them, and we sort of put them in touch with each other, and they'll feed into us, or universities contact us if they want some taking part opportunities to support with some research. We send it out to the network. So it's just a network, and it's called the Deep Network from the original project, which went to map where are all these groups. And as I say, we found about a dozen of them about 20 years ago. Now there's about 100. So that's nice. And so it's growing, and the numbers are growing. So that platform. So at any one time, there's a conversation around the UK involving maybe 1,000 people with dementia.
Amazing. And Bonnie.
I don't have a question. I just really inspired by all this. I'm one of the state dementia care specialists. In Wisconsin, we have a dementia care specialist program. So every county has a person like myself to work with families and individuals and also provide education. And in the last few years, I've had more individuals approaching me that have been diagnosed with like early onset or early stage MCI, and just sharing their concerns about wanting a place to go to where they can talk freely about what they're experiencing. But I've also had people say, I don't only want to have support from others, but I want to know how I can maintain my skills for as long as possible. So, from those conversations, I'm going to be starting a group called the Sequoia Club, because I think of the sequoia tree where, for them to stand tall and strong, they have to broaden their root system and intertwine with others. So I thought that was a great image of what this can be. So I am utilizing hopefully parts of the dementia self-management program. Damien, I'd like to get in touch with you and find out more about the Living a Good Life program, how that's set up, just kind of as some guidance to what I can do with the group. I do know those first few sessions, it's just going to be sitting and listening to everybody, like you said, to really kind of set up how we may move forward. Because my plan that I may have will be completely wrong for the people who are there. Um, it's going to take some time, though, because I'm from a very rural part of the state of Wisconsin, so it may be a while before we get a few people coming, but I'm really, really excited about doing this. And again, this presentation today kind of put another little fire underneath me to get this up and going.
Nice to hear that, Bonnie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other questions, or maybe I missed something in the chat? If you'd like to pose it again, please feel free. Any other questions or comments or thoughts, stories that you'd like to share? Yeah, Aruna.
Can these same strategies be used for individuals with traumatic brain injury or acquired brain injury?
A lot of it possibly is, Aruna, um I mean, when we have a conversation, the common topic is the diagnosis of dementia. So but yeah, I mean, it could well be. A lot of the issues are going to be the same. A lot of the cognitive problems are going to be the same. So when people talk about life with this cognitive issue, whatever it is, you know, generally people say the biggest problem they've got around their dementia or around their condition is other people. So that probably wouldn't be different for someone with a traumatic brain injury either. Other people talk too quickly for me. Other people interrupt me. Other people treat me like a child. Other people correct me. Other people tell me off. Other people ignore me. Other people, all that sort of stuff. And generally, whatever potential people have, however limited it is, people aren't even reaching that because of other people, because of the world around, because of me, you and I and everyone else. And I think that's really important, isn't it? That no matter how much damage there is to the brain, whatever potential that people have got, if they're not reaching that, that's not fair. And that's often down to matters other than the dementia or a brain injury. Yeah. So there are some common, and the impact on relationships, for example, within families, will be similar, won't they, as well? So
Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? The floor is open for anything you'd like to share.
U.S., we have things like Dementia Action and Alliance and others. I want to say, we are not our diagnosis. I think that if we think of ourselves as a whole person, it's much more it's better. And would you advise that?
that's a message I hear all the time. I'm much more than a diagnosis. Don't label me. And that's certainly one of the messages that our groups put out there frequently. And I was just reflecting when I was reporting to our commissioners, to the people who fund our programs, recently, that it's maybe 4 or 5 years, and in each manifesto, it's the same sort of message coming out. So why aren't you heeding it? So I'm asking serious questions now that they need to actually start responding rather than saying, "Oh, isn't that nice what people are saying?" But no, you're absolutely right, Michaela. People shouldn't just be sort of put in a box and sat in a corner just because of a diagnosis.
I am so grateful for your time and your expertise, your leadership, your inspiration, Damian. You have, I think, brought us all into a truly resonant space here. And on behalf of Dementia Friendly Nevada, on behalf before I go on, Ginger, did I miss a question from you?
Oh, he answered my question. But I
Perfect.
want to say, with people like me with mild cognitive impairment, would you address that, or do you allow that in your groups?
I would say so because I'm not there to diagnose anybody. And I think if there's a mild cognitive impairment, then there's an impairment, isn't it? That's going to have an impact on your life and the world around you, and other people are going to change towards you. I'm sure you notice all those things. So I'm sure, yeah, I wouldn't kick you out of the room, Ginger.
Thank you.
Well, I very much look forward to continuing this transnational conversation that we have started. Um, Damien, if you are ever in Nevada, please know we love to show you around. And we will, and we are taking such excellent guidance and motivation from you today. So thank you for sharing about A Good Life with Dementia. I'd encourage anyone who wants to know more about what Innovations in Dementia is doing, not just the A Good Life with Dementia program, but all of the tremendous work that Damien very masterfully condensed into a very short bio that probably could have been 5 or 10 pages, because Damien, you have been such a tremendous leader in this space. Go to innovationsindementiaUK. I actually
.org.uk.
.org.uk, innovationsindementiaorg.uk. And I'll put that in the chat. And to stay connected with what Innovations in Dementia is doing, I know that Damien had put his contact information up on one of the slides. We'll make sure that it's easy for you to send Damien an email as well if you'd like to follow up or continue the
Of course, yeah.
conversation.